What's up? This is the old slow one against some Protoss dude, and in the previous game you went for the 2-1-0 Thor push with a whole bunch of infantry, and I kind of liked it. It's a reasonable push that I've done a bunch of times. I tend to stop doing it. Like, I tend to think of it as a great idea and be like, yeah, well, Thors are even better than tanks, and Thors are even better than Banshees because of this. And then I'll do it a bunch of times, win a couple of times, and then I'll face somebody who has Guardian Shield and Immortals mixed together, and I'll be like, you know what? The Guardian Shield negates my Marines, the Immortals negate my Thors, and he just kicks my butt. So I tend to, do it for a little while and then be like, I should stop doing this. So your opening we talked about in the previous game, 6 minutes, you want to have 925 plus completed concussive shells, and you have 825, and you're going to eventually hit 950 like just 10 seconds later. So just like last time, you're 10 seconds behind on that opener, but that's not something worth griping over. 10 seconds is no big deal. You're getting stim before concussive shells, which means that if he comes with stalkers, he's going to be able to harass you and get away, but I doubt that you're going to run into any of that in your league. Which I actually don't know your league, but I know it's not Masters, so I would say that it's unlikely that Stalker Harass is going to be a big issue. This is the second time in a row you've faced a one-basing Protoss. I never ever see one-basing Protosses anymore, so it's pretty cool. Lucky you. As soon as your factory finishes, you're going to throw in an armory, right? Let's see that armory. Yeah, build it. Boom! Armory, 20 seconds between when the factory finished and the armory, that's totally fine. Your first Thor is going to be done at 9 minutes and 30 seconds. At which point you're going to have basically a crappy army, I would think. I'm a little worried. Yeah, this is not going to go well. You might win the game because your opponent sucks. But if we just benchmark-wise, I'm pretty worried. So yeah, because you're starting your Thor now. Your money is completely zero, and that's awesome and everything. But you've been basically on $500 a minute of economy for a really long time from these two things, and you want to be starting your supplemental income, your additional crap at 8 minutes, because 8 minutes is when you stop being able to fully keep up with just $500 a minute. Oh, you know what it is? Thors cost $500 a minute off of one building. Every building in the world costs $250 a minute. Thors cost double that, so it's okay. It's gonna work out fine. So even though you were a minute late with that Thor, it didn't matter because he gives you basically 2 minutes worth of spending off of that building, so you catch up immediately just by making that Thor. So anyway, you're pushing with one Thor and a bunch of infantry. You've got stim and concussive shells, which is $300. You've got no researches here, nothing else. So this is a $3,500 push at 10:30. So at 10 minutes you had $3,500. So this is great. It's perfect. 37 workers, what you're shooting for. You got 32. That's bad. You're missing 5 workers. No big deal. I mean, it is. I don't know. Again, when there's very little to talk about because this is a one-base play, every little thing counts. So being short by basically $250 of workers it's just a little deal. It's not the biggest deal in the world. You're following up with workers a little bit late, and Nick likes to do this. Lots of people like to do this because your Thor is going to take so damn long to get across the field that keeping those workers idle while you cross the field with your Thor seems like a waste of worker time. But what if you get ambushed? Is my contention. I like to pull workers when I pull my army because if he attacks me right here when I was expecting to have that time to walk across the field, I have to fight with no workers, and then my Thor dies and my workers are useless because there's nothing else in this entire composition that my workers can repair. That's a big vulnerability of this style of play, is that you're pulling a bunch of workers to repair the Thor. The only point of those workers is to repair the Thor. So if the Thor dies, you got nothing to repair anymore, and you're just kind of like, boo. He's holding the high ground. This is, I mean, you're gonna win. You got a much bigger army than him. But this is like, if he's gonna fight, this is the best way for him to fight. Is to hold the high ground. He shouldn't have gone down with those zealots. He should have just held right here and said, you can't get up my ramp, ha ha ha. But so much of his stuff is in range of the low ground that you just kind of rip him up. And your heavy marine bias makes it so that every unit he's made is just going to die. Your Thor doesn't do a single thing except pop that bubble. The Thor doesn't fight at all, and you just win because Marines dominate and you had so much more of them than your opponent. Your opponent just had a much smaller army than you. because there's no way for a Protoss to one base and match a Terran who's one basing. We have mules, you don't, and other than that, our income is identical. Therefore, we got more money than you. He made a lot of High Templars, didn't get Psystorm. It's just a lot of crappy stuff on his part. So this push was beautiful. You had 3,500 bucks at 10 minutes, which is better than last time, and it worked out, man. The whole point of the tech unit is to break that bubble, and thors fulfill that role pretty nicely, and you used it for that purpose. You popped the bubble and then just won with your infantry. So everything was good. Nothing really to comment on other than that you were short a couple of workers and heavy on marauders. This is a heck of a lot of marauders. If you face someone who goes Immortal Charge Lot, again, it's going to rip this composition to shreds, especially if he has Guardian Shield mixed in. But so far you've been fighting against people who made a kind of balanced composition. In this case, he made some Zealots, but they were stuck behind a ramp, so they really didn't do anything. And some Stalkers and some Immortals and a whole bunch of completely useless Templars. And in the previous composition, he went Colossus Stalker, which is not Immortal Zealot. So, again, it all depends on what you face, but you kicked this guy's butt, so not much to add.